Welcome to Organization Design, Development, and Change. This is week one of the Graduate College, Siena Heights University, and we're going to walk through a look at organizations, design, development, and change this semester. You already know much more than you probably think you do. I mean, if you pause for a moment and think about the organizations you've worked for over the course of your lifetime, there's structure, there's processes, hierarchy, there's all kinds of things, the cultures. You just don't know how to put it all together yet, and certainly not how to lead it. Just to clarify, when we talk about design, the term is organization design. It's okay to talk about organizational development and organizational change, but practitioners in particular get a little bit out of shade if we add the AL to the end of organization design. Within all of our organizations, we have some variation of structure, processes, organizational culture, which you have already had as a class, and as we all know, change is a constant whether forced upon us or guided. Within all these categories are aspects of psychology, philosophy, vision, and economics. But most importantly for any organization is the people. Forgetting that it's individuals and teams that will carry out whatever organizational changes are taking place in an effort to improve customer service, performance, and profit, and our attempts to change will result in confusion, anger, and failure. Organizational development has existed since we were hunter-gatherers, and two or more individuals divided up tasks to accomplish a common goal. Organizational development has evolved through agricultural, into craft work and feudal societies, and the Industrial Revolution, though in many cases our organizations are stuck in that business model, which came out of the Industrial Revolution. They're just more efficient with higher technical expertise and fewer children and adults working. Globally, in many of the leading industrialized nations, we've moved heavily into a service economy, which requires a completely different mindset than manufacturing. In the background of organizational development, Adam Smith in 1776 first published The Wealth of Nations, of which the 5th edition is available for free online at the Econ Library. There's a link attached both online in the bibliography and in the PowerPoint. Smith was an economist and a philosopher, and his work at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution forms a basis for economics, divisions of labor, global trade, and more. Economist Ronald Coase in 1937 publishes The Nature of the Firm, which is available as a PDF download at eCollege, and that advanced the knowledge of the complexity of relationships within organizations. Kurt Lewin furthered the sciences of group dynamics, action or participatory research, and collaborative change, first at MIT and then at the University of Michigan. Go Blue. Richard Beckard and Warren Bennis in 1969 both published works on organizational development, though Bennis is much more well known today and is someone you should be very familiar with. Jay Galbraith, a global leader in organization design, note we changed terms there, published a key work in 1974 discussing the process view of organization design, and that article is also available for download in eCollege. There are numerous definitions, and one from Warren Bennis himself says organization development is a response to change, a complex educational strategy intended to change beliefs, attitudes, values, and structures of organizations so that they can adapt better to new technologies, markets, and challenges, and the dizzying rate of change itself. If you remember any of your organizational culture studies, there's some very key words in there that follow through as well. But you'll also notice within this that it's response to change. Galbraith's model, back in 1974, is used as a basis for the majority of U.S. organizations today. You've got rules and programs, the hierarchical referral, and the goal setting. That leads to creations of Slack resources, creation of self-contained tasks, investment in vertical information systems, and creation of lateral relations, reducing the need for information processing and increasing the capacity to process information. This is an organization design strategy that Galbraith developed in 1974. From Smith and Coase, we get our standard vertical organizational hierarchies, which over time for many organizations have become more lateral, but in many cases just increased bureaucracies, middle managers, and still had vertical tendencies. In the 1980s, organizations moved into the development of teams, which was highly successful in Europe and in companies like Toyota. And in the 1990s, communities of practice became more popular. I love this graphic on why Neanderthal man became extinct in the networked organizations that have evolved in the 2000s. Networked organizations continue to grow with contributors to the team working in the cloud from across the globe. David Skirm describes it this way. A networked organization is one that recognizes that at the heart of an organization's success is its knowledge workers and how they collaborate and interact with each other. The term has been defined by Jessica Lipnack and Jeff Stamps as one where independent people and groups act as independent nodes, link across boundaries to work together for a common purpose. It has multiple leaders, lots of voluntary links, and interacting levels. Other terms for similar types of organizations have been described, such as lattice organization, the spider's web, the holonic enterprise, and the virtual corporation. All describe new ways of organizing which gain authority not from a hierarchy, but from the individual's recognized knowledge and skill, linking people and teams across conventional boundaries, departments, geographies, and have members and structures that adapt to changing circumstances where management is a sense of mutual responsibility instead of following orders. They explore ways to work effectively versus following predefined processes. They readjust or disband teams as needed to meet organizational objectives, and therefore, networked organizations exhibit characteristics of innovation, resilience, and self-management. This was the only Microsoft image available in clip art for global organizations, and I didn't like it in part because the executive looks rather sleazy, among other things. So I've picked this one, which represents the complexity because at least one of these employees looks a little confused. Unfortunately, none of them appear to be women, so it's still not an accurate reflection of most organizations today in complex global structures or even in local organizations here. Economies of scale have mostly been achieved in a global manufacturing environment. We produce more goods in a quicker amount of time. Today, organizations need economies of scope to focus energy, intellectual, and assets quickly and effectively to achieve competitive advantage and seize opportunities as margins continue to be squeezed everywhere. Glocalization is a term you may not have heard before, but what if I don't work or ever intend to work for a global organization? I'm not going to work for Whirlpool. Glocalization is a term I first heard discussed at the Organization Design Forum, which we may consider an abbreviation of the phrase, think globally, act locally. Within our organizations and across organizations, collaboration is essential, whether within teams, multiple departments, and even in some cases with firms that we may have considered opponents previously, as we discussed in our negotiation class. This graphic comes from the link you see on the slide. A key component of successful organization design, development, and change is the engagement of team members at all levels, clients, customers, and vendors, stakeholders, and we'll discuss that later in the term. So as we move through this class, through your readings, through your writings, and through your research, we need to think not as things are now, but as they could be. Leadership never occurs in a vacuum. Organizational culture change, improving results and profitability requires engaged followers whose hearts have been moved by a vision communicated and demonstrated by those in power. Effective organization design, development, and change begins with honestly engaged team members at every level of the organization and a clarity of vision. If you could transform your current organization to improve customer service and outcomes, increase job satisfaction for employees, and positively impact the bottom line, what would you do? Because the only effective and meaningful definition and tools of organization design are the ones that work for you and your organization. That's why we're going to learn multiple tools in this class, because they don't always apply. We had one definition of OD from Warren Bennis earlier in the class. Here's a better one from McLean and McLean in 2011. Organization development is any process or activity based on the behavioral sciences that either initially or over the long term has the potential to develop in an organizational setting enhanced knowledge, expertise, productivity, satisfaction, income, interpersonal relationships, and other desired outcomes, whether for personal or group team gain, or for the benefit of an organization, community, nation, region, or ultimately the whole of humanity. That's a definition we can live with and work by. So as we move through this 10 weeks, what do you need this term? What do you need from this class? What are you going to remember? What are you going to share with others? And what are you going to do in your professional and personal lives throughout this class and after this class is over? Keep the end in mind. Great quote from Brown, book in 2007. He'd found a bridge with a sign, "Please use this bridge to cross." He wondered aloud how many times in his life he had wandered on the bank of a river of change and not seen such an obvious sign, nor put his foot upon the bridge before him. You're at a bridge. It's time to cross and get to the other side. So your assignments for week 1 are watch the videos in eCollege. There is more than just this one. Read section 1 of both What Matters Now and Designing for Growth. Sections are maybe more than one chapter, but these are not difficult reads, and there's no answer questions at the test to take at the end. Highlight, take whatever notes you need to, pause and reflect. What does what I'm reading mean to me? Participate, of course, in your discussion threads at eCollege, and if you have any questions or need any help, you know how to get a hold of me. What's your vision for where you're going to go in the next 10 weeks and where you're going to go as you finish up your graduate degree? We'll see you next week in class.